Okay. So, all right. So that actually you had a lot of thank yous in the chat room. People are agreeing with you on some things. Bet you didn't think that was going to happen, huh?
No, I didn't think that.
Well, I want to go into another
Deborah,
thing.
can I just say one thing before we go off the topic? One of the things that I want to just mention is that I think that it's really interesting on the topic of Ann Coulter, a person who speaks and spews such hate that you would be viewed in a light different than her. So if you guys are viewed as the most hated church or the most hated family in America, why is this woman still ticking? And obviously I know why. I can answer my own question, and that is money. And this woman I don't think has a conviction beyond self-preservation, to save her soul. But she says horribly hateful things, not even rooted in an ideology. And I just wanted to point that out.
That's the difference.
Yeah, that's
the ideology. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's kind of a very good point, Leah. Thank you. Now, you had touched on this a little bit, Shirley, before, and I wanted to ask about this, about false prophets. In Deuteronomy 13, talks about if there arise among you a prophet or a dreamer of dreams and gives you a sign or a wonder, and that sign or wonder comes to pass, just like he said, and says, let us go after other gods, which you have not known, and let us serve them, that you shall not hearken unto the words of that prophet or that dreamer of dreams, for the Lord your God proves you to know whether you love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul. You shall walk after the Lord your God and fear him and keep his commandments and obey his voice, and you shall serve him and cleave unto him. And that prophet or that dreamer of dreams shall be put to death. Now, I read a lot of theology, and I have heard people say, does this actually give the Jews, just because I know that some of your signs are God hates Jews and stuff like that, do you think that they were relying on that when the Messiah came saying that he was a prophet?
Well, no. They had so long ago kicked the law of Moses to the curb, so long ago. Furthermore, they didn't have and they didn't mention that, by the way. What they talked about and what Caiaphas said was it was all about their money. He's going to mess up. Look at this thing they have. They got this where they're the big boss. They got all this money pouring in. You know the picture. They turned the house of God, the temple of Solomon, into a den of thieves. And Christ went in there. One of the last things he did that brought their wrath was when he braided the cord and turned over those tables and chased out all those money changers. And no, they weren't relying on that. What they were relying on was their hate. They were relying on because we could. Look, there are so many times that we are shown in those scriptures how mean and what we have found ourselves. And I'm just saying, in this last year, since we've been drilling down, been up closer to our Jewish brethren, is that there's some very mean people, and Ezekiel was so afraid of them, and even Paul and Peter were browbeat, so afraid of the hostility and the anger and the meanness that they would come up with, that they erred. Paul said he had to withstand Peter to his face. And Peter, who's the one who had the vision on top of the house and knew that he was supposed to be not be turning away those Gentiles, was pressured into doing just that. And Paul, who knew better, made Timothy get circumcised. He knew better. But my point is, they weren't relying on that. They murdered Christ because he was threatening their way of life and because they were jealous.